Good morning and welcome to the press conference on the report on the 2019-2020 Commission reports on Turkey. Just a short reminder before we start, this press conference is being held after the results on the amendments have been announced this morning and the final text of the resolution is clear. But due to COVID-19, we have a special voting regime in place, so MEPs have not yet finished voting on the resolution as a whole. The final result will be announced tonight at 7 p.m. After that, we will issue a press release. It is my pleasure to welcome the European Parliament Standing Rapporteur for Turkey, Mr. Nacho Sanchez Amor. He will first brief you on his report and will then answer your questions. So let me give the floor to our rapporteur, Mr. Sanchez Amor.
Thank you. Gracias.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Thank you for organizing this press conference. Well, sometimes with my colleagues, I kind of feel sorry for myself for having taken on board the Turkey dossier. It's not an easy one. But I think that the excellent work that we've done, working together with the shadow rapporteurs, has led to, I hope, a document that will be supported by the groups this afternoon in the voting. It's important, for indeed this is undoubtedly the most critical reports ever produced on Turkey from the Parliament, not just because the atmosphere in the Parliament is particularly harsh. We can see that in the amendments. But because we're trying here to describe the relationship with Turkey between the EU and Turkey over the last years, and this has been a tough period. It is formally an accession candidate country, and that means that you're supposed to slowly but surely align yourself, your country, with the policies of the Union. And you have to take on board the interests, the values of the Union. And what we've seen with Turkey, unfortunately, has been that things have been getting worse through the past years. So that has led to the thoughts put down in this report. And that's why this report indeed is so critical, as was presented in the plenary. So we have political messages. I won't give out too many here now, but we need to get a political message across to the government of Turkey. If the government of Turkey wants to return to trust, it needs to drop the anti-European rhetoric. It's only for domestic purposes. We understand that. But what's more, Turkey needs, if it wants to be a candidate to accession, it needs to move down the path of democratic reform, which Turkey has abandoned a number of years back. Now, early in the days of the candidacy of Turkey to the EU, well, progress was made. But unfortunately, there is no political will detected on the Turkish side. And that has led us to this standstill state of the candidacy process. We've mentioned the possibility even of sanctions in the last months of last year. And there was an offer at that point in time, which wasn't particularly concrete. And then the elite Turkish leaders had to rethink what they wanted in the future. But we really want not just speeches from the Turkish leaders. We need acts. We need concrete acts that reflect political will, because really pretty much the words that would indicate that there is a willingness, plans on human rights and whatnot and reforms, well, we read the papers but we see nothing actually. And if you look at the actual situation in Turkey, if you look at what is happening with the prosecutions, we see the undermining of the democratic values in Turkey. That is something that precedes the attempted coup d'etat. We see now that if there's any criticism whatsoever in Turkey, the state apparatus tolerates it not. And we see that in the courts, the situation is deteriorating. This certainly does not reflect anything that might indicate that they are on a path to try and reconcile with the EU. So over these years, and with the rhetoric, this flies in the face of the voice of the Turkish people, which has expressed a pro-European stance. And we're not, at this point, going to put really the questions of the rule of law, the human rights, respect, at the heart of our relations. We've seen what's happened with the NGOs. We've seen that we have a positive agenda forward to Turkey. Sometimes we haven't put the human rights in their proper place. That's been a mistake in the eyes of the European Parliament. Now, there's a third message we do want to get across to the Commission, to the Council in particular, but especially the Council. You can't just follow one political approach to Turkey. You can't just have a positive tone in one institution, and then in others, in the Parliament, there's discussion of ending the customs union with Turkey. We have not yet learned how to speak with one voice. Now, the Council's dealings with Turkey would seem to be that they're dealing with a third country, and just a third country, but we need to see that it is also a country which has applied for accession. So we have to be all on the same page here in the European Parliament and elsewhere. So any offer that comes forward with Turkey has to have very strong conditionality, focusing on the need for improvements in the area of human rights. And that is should be the basis of moving forward with the new customs union. And this customs union, again, has to be only on the condition that there's an improvement of human rights. And if we can get an agreement that coming 2 or 3 years, well, it's going to come then to Parliament. And Parliament has already said what it wants to have in that document. So if the negotiations for the customs union don't lead to democratic reforms, this Parliament is not going to approve that agreement. And I think the Council needs to understand that from the outset. So, again, that needs to be kept in mind, because there won't be approval for a new agreement with Turkey if there's no progress in the area of human rights and rule of law. And then finally, what I said before and I've repeated today, our door is open here at the Parliament. We've had comments from some that think that the accession process should be declared null and void, but we have always kept the door at least ajar to Turkey. We don't let ourselves be convinced by those who are calling for us to abandon any attempt to proceed with Turkey's candidacy. So we want to encourage them to reform. And in this report, we state clearly that we want the best possible relations with a country which is a neighbor and an ally. And we want the best for Turkey and for its people and for its society. It's much closer to Europe than it has been in the past. And there are, of course, reasons to build upon that. So that's the political message that the Parliament wants to get across here to the Turkish government, to the Turkish people and society. And now I'd be more than happy to take any questions that you might want to put to me.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez-Amor. And we can start taking questions now. If you have a question, please press the raise hand button and we will open your microphone when it is your turn. Just don't forget to press the speak button. So we will start with Sara Maria. Yes, we can. You can ask your question. Maria, can you press the speak button, please?
Yes. Hello, can you hear me now? Yes, I hope you can hear me and see me maybe. I'm Maria Psara with Open TV from Greece. I have 2 questions, if I may. The first, you said that the door for Europe to Turkey should be and remain open. But yesterday your colleagues from EPP said that they would want to close this door. So I would like to ask you, if the Europe lets the door open. How confident are you that Turkey will approach the EU values, and how would you press the Turkish government? As you said, Turkey is not its government, but its people as well. How would you press the government to reform as you propose? And the second question is, you said as well that the Council and the European Parliament and the Commission, but mainly the Council and the Parliament, have two different voices when it comes to Turkey. How could the European Parliament influence press in order to come in the same page? Because we see, for example, that your report is really hard, but the approach that the Commission and the Council want usually is the positive agenda, okay, with reverse terms, but still a positive agenda. Thank you.
Gracias.
Yes, thank you. Well, it's true that there are two approaches here, two voices. And some have said that we've got to end the negotiations with Turkey. But that has been rejected. So the Parliament is very critical of the relationship with Turkey. Yet it has said that it does want to keep the door open. That has come out very clearly from the proposals on the table and the reaction to those calls to end negotiations. That's always been a point of view of the extreme right. It was taken on board by a few colleagues at points in time from the EPP, but they've never tabled an amendment to that effect. And they've rejected the calls coming from the IND group calling for just that. Even if a few colleagues have said other things, that's not the main view of the Parliament. Well, our hopes? Well, one thing I criticize, but I hear quite often, sometimes in the press in Turkey, is this perverse idea that Turkey is not getting sufficient incentives. Incentives to be a democracy. I mean, do you have to give incentives from the outside so the society decides to become a mature democracy? I think that Turkey abandoned this path down to become a mature democracy, but that's up to the intellectuals, to the institutions in Turkey. Now, I'm from Spain, and I have some background on these matters. We lived through a dictatorship, and we went to democracy. We didn't need incentives. We wanted to be a democracy, and we had to overcome difficulties to get there. So really, Turkey can't wait for incentives to become a democracy. They can expect democracies as part of an accession process where they've already become a democracy via reforms. For example, when Turkey states that Europe is not meeting its obligations in light of the 2016 refugee agreement, well, you've got to recall to Turkey, you've got to remind them, at least to some who who have this idea, well, you've got 6 or 7 measures that Turkey has endorsed. For example, its anti-tourist approach and its data protection. But it hasn't actually tried to implement those reforms. So we are doing our part, but quite often we see that the political will in Turkey there is no political will to move forward with reforms. Now, I would hope that would change. We've heard what Erdogan has said of late, and by his spokespersons in the government, and but pretty much, they sometimes say what we want to hear, but we don't see it in the facts, and we want the facts. We don't want more plans published in detail, when if what actually occurs in the courts and elsewhere, it flies in the face of those plans. I mean, if you look what's happened with taking out the mayor of Istanbul and the flagrant rejection of human rights handed down in the court sentences, and the fact that the European Court of Justice decisions is not being respected in Turkey. Turkey is a party to that body. So we need to see facts, and that's what's important here. in the Parliament. I think that's why the Parliament is right to leave the door open. I think that's a wise approach. Again, though we see this with a critical eye. We've had many debates about Turkey over the last years, and we've in this legislature have looked at Turkey a great deal. And despite our criticism, the door is open to Turkey. But we have no moral obligation to pull Turkey into democracy. That's their decision that they need to take. But when that happens, then Turkey will be ready to become a member of the European Union. But it's up to the Turkish society. Now, when it comes to the references I made to the Council, well, we were a bit cross of late with the Council the last years and the last months of last year, because there was a very, very generous offer, which didn't really tie in with any changes in behavior on their end. There were no conditions. And again, you have to look at the democratic standards in the country. You've got to have the military ships withdrawn. You've got the problems there in the Mediterranean with Turkish ships, the intolerable attitude in terms of their relations with Turkey and Cyprus, or rather with Greece and Cyprus. But again, what upset the Parliament was a lack of commitment to adopting a process of democracy. We're getting a bit tired of being the only institution that takes these matters very seriously. This is not just the Parliament's job here. This is something that should be taken on board by all the institutions, including the Council. The Council can't play a good cop, bad cop approach here, where we're the ones that shout out, oh, the need for values, and then Council just ignores this call. And with a candidate country. I mean, we're not talking about just any country. We're talking about a candidate to accession, which has had a positive offer given to them 6 months ago. But we need to take into account the democratic situation in Turkey. We've seen the Commission being quiet too long, and then we had the visit with van der Leyen to Turkey, and then we saw what happened in the press conference. Well, that just came down to a question of seats on the sofa. But we heard what was said, and van der Leyen was very clear when she defended the values of Europe. And then there was even a reference to certain cases where we couldn't understand how these individuals in the country could be treated in this way. So now, okay, the Commission and the Council, they need to knock their heads together and do the same thing. The Council needs to now accept, or rather recognize, the fact that the Constitution and the texts of Europe apply to all the institutions. And if it applies to other third countries, well, how does it not apply to a candidate state even more so? So that's what I said to Santos Silva, the minister, yesterday, the Portuguese minister, that we really got to understand that no positive offer to Turkey can fail to have conditions on improvements in human rights. So again, the Council has called for a renegotiation of the customs union. But at the end of the day, that's what we're going to be voting on here. And we're going to be stating very clearly that there'll be no renewal of the customs union unless there are strong democracy conditions included. This is something that's going to have to come via Parliament. And we're already preparing those conditions, the democratic coefficient applying to Turkey. As a candidate state, Turkey's got to and has taken on a commitment to come closer to our values and to our policies. And we have every right at the European Union level to demand that they do so. And that's what we say in this report. The fact that Turkey is a candidate state, that's the best lever that we have to have a right to comment on what's happening in Turkey. In a non-candidate state, a third country, that might be difficult. But here, there is a process for accession. And we have a right to have opinions on what's occurring in the country, therefore. And what we think is that Turkey, if it really wants to come into the European Union, as its spokespersons have indicated, well, then they've got to pretty much you come forward and show us show us the beef, really.
Thank you. The next one with a question is Sarah Ann Narup from Politico. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Thank you. My question is regarding the customs union. Beyond human rights, what steps do you want to see Ankara take on the economic and trade side to show goodwill regarding modernization? And what do you say to the Turkish side when they speak of an asymmetric customs union? Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you. Political rhetoric around the customs union is often confusing. People say this is an economic and commercial relationship. It's a relationship which works and both sides win. But we don't win. If Demirtaş is in prison and he cannot make any critical tweets, Europe doesn't win. You can't just say that if it's economic and that's enough. Volkswagen was wondering about a huge investment in Turkey, you may remember. Were they talking about the lira, the currency rate? No, they backtracked because of the rule of law and legal uncertainty. And that's to do with the political system in Turkey, not the economic system. So the customs union isn't something which is alien to the world of political values. It's not something that we can leave entirely in the hands of business. It is intimately linked to politics. If Turkey cannot offer guarantees, it won't offer guarantees in the business area. They had, even though there's economic activity, you ended up with a single message coming out, and this is harmful to businesses. In the current customs union, we have problems already. We're involved in WTO disputes. There are various accusations. Europe feels that measures have been taken by Turkey which are harmful. It reflects the difficulties, of course, that we have in our overall relations. So either we just resolve the customs union problems in the form as it is, or go for a new customs union. The offer from the Council, which Parliament isn't rejecting out of hand, the Council is saying that we should move towards a new customs union, including new sectors. What we're saying, and because we know what's happening in the judicial system there, we know the fear of certain European companies about investing in Turkey in a major way because of the lack of independence of the judiciary. The whole question of the customs union has to have democratic conditionality for the reasons I was explaining before. Legal certainty assists investment in the country, and also because of the accession process. There's always been the reform leverage for accession in all countries. So sometimes it slowed things down. We had the Balkans recently, and also the Eastern neighborhood policies. But Turkey has decided that the relationship with the EU should be a dense and a complex relationship, and the customs union reflects that. The accession process is not leading to reforms. The treaties have obliged us to call for democratic reform. You can't be a candidate country which does not comply with its obligations which arise from the accession process, and at the same time ask for customs union perks. we cannot give a preferential agreement to a country if it's not complying with its democratic obligations. It's as simple as that. And that is what the Parliament has been asking the Council to do. This dossier will end up in this Parliament. We cannot be clearer. Ministers, Council. If we open customs union negotiations, we have to include a democratic conditionality so that we end up democratic reforms and guarantees for the civil society, for political parties, for the activists. They're desperate to see, they would be desperate if they see that the President of Turkey has received an agenda with no democratic conditionality in it. We will never back off its agenda promoting democratic values, particularly for a candidate country, and the Council should be very aware of the fact that the dossier will end up here. And we will do everything we can to make the Turks understand that in this file, in parallel with what we're doing, we have to insert democratic conditionality.
So let us check if we have any more questions. Just to remind you, if you have a question, you need to press raise hand button. No, I think we are also running out of time slowly. So this brings us to the end of the. Oh no, there is one more. It's Maria again, Maria Psaura.
Since I don't take the question from any colleague of mine, should I ask you if you have received any invitation to visit Turkey soon, or if you could give us a readout from your meeting with the Turkey's representatives that were in Brussels recently, because we don't really know what was discussed. Thank you.
Gracias.
I have a permanent and open invitation to visit Turkey from the ambassador, from Minister Çavuşoğlu, who I met recently when he was here in Brussels. So it's an open invitation. The Turkish authorities, I have to say, have been very polite and understanding of my difficult role as the Turkey rapporteur. As far as civil society is concerned, we have relations with NGOs. We talk to them every week, at least 2 meetings a week. And I also have meetings with the Turkish authorities. And I always say the same thing. Turkish society in general, the Turkish authorities appreciate that the language never changes. The things I've said today, which will be heard in Turkey, of course, I say it to Ankara exactly the same way. And the authorities have always expressed respect. Of course, they disagree with our analysis, and I've received official letters from Turkey recently on the content of the report, and I answered in a courteous manner. So it's an open invitation, and I'm very grateful for their openness. We have a very normal relationship and frequent relationship, and of course with the ambassador to the EU. So that has allowed me to focus my report not just on information and everybody's sensitivities, but trying not to convert myself into some kind of Turkish activist or a pro-Turkish activist here in Brussels, but I'm a politician with some years of experience, so I've tried to adopt an objective and open attitude, leading to this report, which has been very critical, and it's received broad support, which is unfortunate because, of course, it reflects the current situation.
Obviamente la dificultad para ir ha sido la pandemia.
Of course, the difficulty in going to Turkey was the pandemic, and before we started the negotiations of the report with my colleagues from the other groups, I was intending to go, but it wasn't possible, and I will go to Turkey whenever circumstances permit.
Well, if we don't have any more questions, we can wrap it up. Thank you all for your questions. Thank you to our rapporteur, Mr. Sanchez-Amor, for his answers. And thank you all for participating, and have a nice day.
Thank you.